Good evening and welcome to the Big Story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Hall.
And I'm Pauline Verzosa.
Tonight's big stories. Another election season in the Philippines officially kicked off today. And day one of the filing of certificates of candidacy certainly brought out the personalities and the drama.
10 of the 12 senatorial aspirants by President Bongbong Marcos make it to the top spots of the latest survey by the SWS. But guess who missed out?
And graduating Senator Nancy Binay makes it official. She will be running against her brother-in-law, Congressman Luis Campos, for mayor of Makati, directly going against her sister's wishes.
Bit of a slow first day for the filing of certificates of candidacy for the 2025 elections, at least on the national level. But as expected, it was a lively atmosphere over at the 10th city at the Manila Hotel, where all COCs were received for today.
Well, it was an interesting mix. There were re-electionists, returnees, first-timers, and of course, the so-called nuisance candidates.
Our reporter, Mon Gualvez, gives us a quick rundown of who's gunning for seats in the Senate and the partyless circle at the House of Representatives.
Even before the clock struck 8 this morning, candidates were ready to submit their certificates of candidacy to COMELEC, set up at Manila Hotel's 10th City until October 8. First in line was Agri-Party List Representative Wilbert Lee, who's joining the senatorial race under Aksyon Demokratiko. If he wins, he says he is pushing for legislation for free medicine and medical services for Filipinos.
Mawala yung takot at pangamba ng bawat Pilipino sa pagkakasakit. Yung pong dahilan kung bakit po napakarami po nating mga kababayan ang ayaw na pong magpadala sa ospital, nakaratay lang sa bahay dahil po pag nadala sa ospital, walang pambayad sa ospital, walang.
Then there's re-electionist Senator Francis Tolentino, who's part of the Marcos administration's senatorial ticket. He first won a seat in the upper chamber with the endorsement of former President Rodrigo Duterte.
I still hold President Duterte in the highest esteem. There's no bad blood, so to speak. I still respect him. What I did was not just a mere political decision. It has to be something aligned with my personal principles.
Tolentino also says there's nothing wrong with political dynasties.
Of a dynasty, a dynastic slate is perhaps anathema to what our democratic process is. Binoboto naman yan ng tao eh. Whether it came from a political family or came from a political aggregation centered on a family, again, the Filipino people would decide. So that's the essence of democracy after all. So I don't see anything bad.
Another senatorial aspirant is Jose Montemayor Jr., who lost his presidential bid in 2022. This time, he wants to be a senator.
Kahit naman noon, malaki rin ang chance kung talagang nabilang lang na maayos. No? Pero ngayon, mas malaki ang advantage dahil nakilala na po ako.
Like Lee, Tolentino, and Montemayor, independent candidates also turned up to COMELEC's makeshift office today to submit their candidacies for senator. Electrician carpenter Alexander Encarnacion says his invention can finally stamp out crime and corruption.
So yung kung na-invento po natin laser course po Fortress on 2019, ora mismo po, titigil po kaagad ang illegal drugs at once ang corruption. Kaya nga dito po ako, nagbabakasakali para kung tayo po ay manalo bilang senador, isa sa bakas po yung concept po ng laser course po Fortress.
Vlogger Mark Gamboa wants to be part of the upper chamber to fight fake news. Then there are senatorial aspirants hoping that this time they'll be put on the ballot. Among them is animal welfare advocate Norman Marquez, security guard Phil De Los Reyes, and once declared nuisance candidate Daniel Magtira. As for the party list race, candidates include Kabayan, AGAP, and ACT-CIS party list. Also vying for a party list seat or two are a co-OFW, Lingap, ang Bumbero ng Pilipinas, and Kamanggagawa party list groups. Overall, COMELEC is satisfied with how day one of the COC filing turned out.
So far, so good po. Walang untoward incident, normal ang filing natin ng candidacy at sana ganun lang mapanatili natin hanggang 8 ng Oktubre.
For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
In the midst of the election fanfare, this may not be welcome news. The approval and trust ratings for the country's top officials dropped in September, most notably for Vice President Sara Duterte. In fact, in Metro Manila, her trust rating dropped a whopping 29 points. Local journalist Denise Valdesancho breaks it down for us.
The approval and trust ratings of both President Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte declined in Pulse Asia's latest survey, which was conducted from September 6 to 13. The president's approval score dipped by 3 percentage points from June to 50% in September, while his trust rating slid 2 percentage points to 50% as well. According to the chair of UST's Political Science Department, Professor Dennis Coronation, the president's numbers continue to reflect lingering issues around inflation, poverty, crime, and tensions at the West Philippine Sea.
Sa lahat ng suliranin ng ating bansa, among these top officials, ang tinatama ng husto yung Pangulo. Nandyan din yung West Philippine Sea issue. Oo, alam naman natin na since the President is the architect of our foreign policy, patuloy tayo nabubuli. May mga hostile incidents sa mga disputed territories. Ang naisip agad ng tao ay yung Pangulo. O sasabihin sign ng kaduwagan.
But the biggest movement in the survey showed up in Vice President Sara Duterte's numbers. She dropped 9 percentage points in approval in September, coming in at 60%, while she lost 10 percentage points in her trust rating, falling to 61%. The Vice President's biggest decline in trust was in the National Capital Region, where it fell a whopping 29 points to just 37%. It's the complete opposite for her in Mindanao, where her trust score dipped 5 points but remained at a high 90% in September. Political analysts say it's clear Duterte's numbers were affected by the contentious hearings on the budget of the Office of the Vice President. He says it also didn't help that she butted heads with the lawmakers and boycotted the hearings.
Nagtuloy-tuloy yung pagbanat sa kanya ng mga members ng House hanggang tuluyan na ngang nasira yung kanyang kredibilidad sa publiko, no? Ang gustong palabasin ng Kongreso doon ay corruption na Vice President official. The members of the House have succeeded, and it reflects on the survey ratings of the Vice President.
Aside from the top 2 officials, Senate President Cheese Escudero and House Speaker Martin Romualdez also suffered declines in their numbers. Escudero, who took over just in May, saw his trust rating drop 13 points. His September approval rating came in at 60%. Speaker Romualdez, meanwhile, saw a 3-point decline in his September approval rating, coming in at 32%, while his trust rating dipped to 31% in the same period. Professor Coronation says the pressure is greater on Speaker Romualdez to improve his numbers, especially if there are bigger plans for him in 2028.
Dahil kung si VP Sara Duterte, siya yung may pressure din sa kanya kasi expected rin siyang magtumakbo bilang presidente. The same goes for Speaker Martin Romualdez kasi siya yung ini-expect na pambato ng administration coalition sa darating na 2028 presidential election. Kung sa ngayon 32% or 33%, dapat by next survey cycle nakaano ka na, siguro 37 or 38. So little by little makikita mo na may progress.
Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
Let's move on now to a different survey. SWS's latest polling for senatorial preferences released just this afternoon. The headline is that 10 out of 12 of the senatorial candidates on the administration's slate have made it to the so-called Magic 12. Topping the poll is still House Deputy Majority Leader Congressman Erwin Tulfo with a commanding lead at 54%, followed by former Senate President Tito Soto, who rose 2 spots from the last survey. Right after them is Senator Pia Cayetano and former President Rodrigo Duterte, who is obviously not in the admin slate. Senator Amy Marcos rounds out the top 5, though she is statistically tied with Duterte. There's also Ping Lacson, Bong Revilla, Camille Villar, Abby Binay, Lito Lapid, Manny Pacquiao, Bato de la Rosa, and Bongo. Villar was the biggest gainer on that list. In the March survey, she had placed between 20th to 24th place. Senator Francis Tolentino, who is also part of the Alianza ticket, fell just short of the top 12. But there is a mere 1 percentage point difference between his score and that of Bongo, 17 to 18%. The only other name in the admin slate who didn't make it to the top 12 is DILG Secretary Benhur Abalos, who is currently hovering at 16th place. This survey was commissioned by the Strat-based group and was conducted from September 14 to 23.
Our first guest tonight is that one man within striking distance of the Magic 12, so-called Magic 12. We're talking about re-electionist Senator Francis Tolentino. Senator Tolentino, good evening. Thanks for being with us again.
Good evening.
Senator, I don't know.
As well.
Yeah, it's a bit echoey. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. I don't know if you heard our earlier reporting, but our first story for tonight was about COC filing day 1, and there was a soundbite in there of you talking about the fact that you don't see anything wrong with dynastic politics. I wonder if you could expound on that, please.
Nothing wrong per se, because they're voted upon by the people. It's the decision of the voters. So while there is a constitutional provision, as I explained it, and I was asked that said provision is not self-executory and would need an enabling legislation to have that implemented. So I think we have to wait for that law. But thus far, there are dynasties, quote unquote, that are can be considered as performing well.
Yeah, there are a number of families running next year, Ngai. So do I take it to mean that if you do get...
It's not bad per se.
Right. Do I take it to mean that if you do get a second term in Senate, that you're not going to be supportive of the anti-dynasty bill?
I'm not saying that, but it has to be clarified, explained. Preventing members of a political family from running would not probably be the right cure for a disease that is intended to be cured. It cannot be considered even as prophylactic, because you look at the records of the candidate himself or herself, not just because he or she belongs to a political family.
What, to your mind, would be a better cure then?
I still don't. Better education, information campaign on the part of the voters, better understanding as to the background and platforms of the candidate, and greater involvement of the voters themselves in really filtering out the bad ones from the good ones, and transparent good governance.
Senator, you recently got out of the party of former President Rodrigo Duterte, PDP Laban, and you mentioned that it is because of the misalignment in principle. And you cited also that you stand differently when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. Is that the main reason, or meron pa pong iba na
that's the reason. That's part of the letter. That's what I also mentioned this morning when I was asked. It's the realization that our engagements with various countries would really be needed, while at the same time strengthening, fortifying our diplomatic relations with countries that can really help us, not just defensively, but even economically. So that's the reason.
You've been exposed to the defense challenges of our country bilang kayo po yung nagtutulak ng Maritime Zones Act. What do you think did we do wrong, or what did we not get right with the previous administration that you're trying to correct now?
It's the engagement with various countries. We're now anchoring all our agreements, even before the 2016 arbitral ruling, that the international law of the sea is really an international, global alliance. So that's why we have to engage all of the signatory countries in our effort to really fortify our claims. So it's not just talking with one country bilaterally, but it involves the entire world. So did we miss a chance? I don't think so. It's just being highlighted right now that there is a need to engage other countries.
Senator, alam po natin, kadikit nung problema nga po natin sa West Philippine Sea at yung security challenges, yung usapin din ng Pogo. I wonder if what your stance on that is, knowing that it could also be, used by China to be able to spy, to be able to surveil our bases, military bases. I mean, do you think we should not have let those businesses in? Ano pong ano?
Well, it was initially, I think the intention to raise revenues was good. There were legal, legitimate players of that industry, quote unquote, who really employed thousands of Filipinos, employing thousands and helping their families. So, but when the abuses came, perhaps when the illegals came, when the illegitimate came without regulatory oversight on the part of the agency designed to oversee them, and they came, so it's really, it got complicated. So you're not talking of, you've heard this during our investigations of human trafficking, scams perpetrated, money laundering, and what have you. But initially, to provide employment as well as to boost our real estate, and it happened briefly. That was good. The economy gained something, but when the abuses came, that's where the problem arose.
Speaking of complicated, has it not complicated things for you a little bit that you're now running as part of the administration's Alianza Senatorial slate?
Not at all.
Considering
Not
that,
at all.
yeah.
Not at all, because I just, as I mentioned this morning, I have always aligned myself with the greater interest of the people, and I see that there is really no need to be adversarial politically. So what I have always advocated is for the Philippines to project an image of economic and political stability, and that's the only way wherein we can entice foreign investments and gradually alleviate those trying to enter the upper middle class category from our population. So I think my decision is not just it's not merely political. One, we talk about foreign policy. Two, I think it aligns as well with my thinking that it's about time that we usher in a new era of economic progress. And I believe I've been part of the 18th and the 19th Congress as well, that there are things being done right now in that sphere.
But Sen, you didn't have to notify former President Duterte that you...
We talked for hours.
What did he say about you running under the administration?
I'd rather have that confidential, but I still hold him in the highest esteem, as I have mentioned.
In short, but you got his blessing to run under the Marcos administration slate?
I was told that I'm free to do whatever I have to do for the country.
Meron po ba kayong nilipatan na party? Ano po yung party na yon?
Initially, I was independent, but I was adopted by the administration party.
Senator, we also wanted to know, how did Senators Bongo and Bato de la Rosa take your joining the Marcos government's ticket?
I think they realized, because they were there during the meeting. I cannot speak for themselves, so they were there, they were present.
Okay.
This is not the meeting.
Pero meron din kasing mga rumors na kayo po ay tinanggal doon sa PDP laban.
So those rumors would remain as rumors.
So how different would it be campaigning for you this time? You are a sitting senator.
I'm used to campaigning even as an independent. I'm used to uh, been going around even alone. So it's nothing new for me. I've been going around the country alone.
You'll be going around alone, or will you
No,
be going
I'm
with
used
the
to that. I'm used to
administration
that.
slate?
I'm used to that.
Uh-uh.
I'm used to that. But I'm part of the slate. So if there are some sorties that would require my presence or would require my saying something about defense, foreign policy, local government, uh, green economy, I'm willing to say my piece.
How will you divide your time? Because on the latest SWS survey, nasa 14 kayo. Pulse Asia, nasa
I
24.
have another one. I have another one. That's why I'm surprised. I have another one. Same SWS. Which places me on number 11. If you can zoom this, the same. Just got confused. Do you see it?
Uh,
Same day.
no, sorry, Sen, we can't really see it, but the
We leave that. We leave that at the moment. So I'm just doing my job as the majority leader,
right.
shepherding various legislative measures and trying to marshal the cohesiveness of the Senate, and as well as, if free, to campaign.
The SWS survey that Gretchen was referring to was released just today.
Yeah,
Yun
this
nga,
one
you're
released
just
yesterday.
oh, okay.
Iba.
You were
Same day.
in the today survey. You were just 1 percentage point away from Senator Bongo. But in any case, the question there remains: are you confident of your chances for another
Okay,
term in the
again,
Senate?
let the people decide. That was also my situation when I first ran years ago. So we just let the people decide.
Speaking of
When I
doing...
filed my certificate of candidacy earlier this morning, I think I was accompanied by my governor, Cavite, John de Cremulya, as well as one of the mayors here in Metro Manila. So we still have some alliances being attained.
Well, speaking of doing your work, one thing that has been put into question is the defense budget that was under the National Expenditure Program na pinasa. Parang out of the 200 plus billion, ang naaprubahan ay nasa 70 billion. May chance po bang maitaas yan? At yun po ba yung itutulak po ninyo?
I think if you look at the trend, we're going down. Starting 2022, 23, 24, the defense budget is going down. So the ideal ratio would be 2% of the GDP. So we're not yet there. We understand that there are some more priorities in terms of social services of the government. So there's a need to balance that. And a lot of things are happening. I still want to have a Sulu transition fund to provide the province of Sulu a buffer, because they were removed from the Bangsamoro regional government. So a lot of things will be in play. These are evolving matters.
But does it not send the wrong message to China? You know, we're talking defending our country. We're not going to surrender a square inch,
yes,
and
that's
then
why-
we see the budget. It's going the other way.
That's why you heard me 2 weeks ago when I first proposed the idea of leasing ships, not outright purchase. Through that mode, we can really acquire big ticket items that would really boost our Navy as well as the Coast Guard. So these are arrangements being done by other countries. If you look at, if you even search online, Singapore has a submarine, but Singapore doesn't own that submarine. They're just leasing a submarine from Sweden. So we can do that. I floated that idea 2 weeks ago.
Right. Okay, last question, Senator. Nothing to do with elections. We hear there's another rumors of another Senate coup, Senate leadership coup. I wonder if you could tell us more details about that.
I'm not aware. Again, as my previous answer would show, rumors would remain rumors.
Okay, so you've not heard anything at this point.
I have heard, but again, rumors would remain rumors.
Okay, we're gonna have to leave that there for tonight. Thanks so much for your time. That was the re-electionist, Senator Francis Tolentino, who just filed his COC today.
We're going to be taking a quick break, but up next, we speak to Agri Party List Representative Wilbert Lee, who was the very first one to file his COC today for Senator. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You are watching the big story here on One News. Of course, local politics can be just as exciting to follow and in some cases more dramatic. Let's take a closer look. In Makati City, it's shaping up to be a fierce battle between two Binay families for the mayoralty, similar to what happened in 2019. Senator Nancy Binay has filed her candidacy for mayor of the wealthy city, which has been a stronghold of the Binay since 1986. As everyone knows by now, Nancy will go up against her brother-in-law, 2nd District Representative Luis Campos, husband to her sister, Abby. When she filed today, Senator Nancy got a bit emotional talking about the friction in their family.
At the end of the day, ate pa rin niya ako, di ba? Magkapatid pa rin kaming dalawa. Kasi pamilya pa rin kami, di ba? And mas mangingibabaw yung pagiging pamilya namin. Sa akin, hindi ko kalaban ng kapatid ko. Walang Abby Binay sa balota. So, hindi kami magkaaway.
And then later today on our sister program on 1PH, Sa Totoo Lang, Senator Nancy said she hopes her sister will honor the fact that their father, former Vice President Jejomar Binay, nominated Nancy and not Abby's husband.
Sa akin naman, I hope and I also pray na I think nagdesisyon na yung father namin, di ba? The mere fact that he signed my certificate of nomination, sana respetohin din niya yung naging desisyon ng aming ama na ako yung napipili niya na tumakbo bilang mayor ng Makati.
And over in Quezon City, re-electionists Mayor Joy Belmonte and Vice Mayor Gian Soto filed their certificates of candidacy together. If they win, this will be their third term under the Bayan Party. There's also a chance Belmonte will run uncontested, something she says she would be very happy about.
If I will run uncontested, I will be very, very happy. And this is to the grace and glory of God. The first term was a pandemic term. So ako naman ang maasa, wala ng pandemya sa third term. At lahat ng mga plano natin, smooth sailing na may sasakatuparan natin.
Meanwhile, in the congressional race, House Speaker Martin Romualdez filed his bid for re-election in the 1st District of Leyte. He is running under Lakas CMD for a potential 6th term in the lower house. Romualdez first served 3 consecutive terms as Leyte's rep from 2007 to 2013. In Quezon City, re-electionists 1st District Representative Arjo Ataide and 5th District Representative PM Vargas filed their COCs.
Over in Navotas, Representative Toby Chanco is running for another term in the city's Lone District. Meanwhile, in Cavite, mother and son Jolo and Lani Mercado Revilla are running for a second term as 1st and 2nd District Representatives. In the party list race, Buhay and Bayan Muna are trying to make a comeback. Both groups lost in the 2022 elections. Bayan Muna is led by human rights lawyer Nery Colmenares, who led the group in filing their COCs today, accompanied by other nominees Carlos Zarate and Ferdy Gaite, while Buhay was led by former Manila Mayor Lito Atienza.
The showdown between the Binays and Makati is still very much dominating headlines at this point. As we know, it's been an exchange of words because we have, as we recall, we had Mayor Abby Binay on our show just on Friday talking about how she hoped and prayed that her sister Nancy will not run. Tapos yun nga, come Monday, one of the very first ones in the Senate to file for Makati Mayor is none other than Senator Nancy.
She was very emotional in that interview.
Yeah, I would be too because it puts her in a very tough spot. And I asked her about it on Friday, and she said, "Kaya nga, I hope she doesn't run because Mayor Abby wants her husband to take that spot." So now it causes a bit of friction, and also not clear what will Mayor Abby's husband, Congressman Campos, do in case he loses, or what will Senator Nancy do in case she loses, right? So, big question there. Also, let's take a closer look at the election by the numbers. There's a lot of seats up for grabs. We're talking about 18,280 seats on the national level. The most, of course, the most important seats are we've got 12 senators, 254 seats in the House of Representatives. There will be 63 party lists. 82 governors and at least 149 city mayors.
Well, ako naman ang binilang ko today, yung mga vlogger at content creator na tumakbo. Kasama dyan si Ross Martan sa District 1 ng Manila. Siya yung na-declare na persona non grata ng Palawan.
Right.
Sa viral video with Rendon Labrador. Mark Gamboa, political vlogger, is running for senator. Mo kauso inaantay pa natin. But some celebrities, si Ayon Perez, the husband of Vice Ganda, Enzo Pineda in QC. Marco Gumabaw is running for congressman in Camarines Sur. There are also several ordinary Filipinos running. Some have been tagged as nuisance candidates.
Some.
May security guard. Pero yung animal rights activist na si Norman Marquez.
Yes.
Tinalo niya yung Comelec nung it declared him as a nuisance candidate. So he's running again this time for senator. So,
and that's interesting. I mean, how do you qualify being a nuisance candidate, right?
Well, there are three
very
qualifications.
specific terms.
You have to put the election in mockery. You have to cause confusion. And the third is if you don't have a bona fide intention to run.
To run, you're just putting your name down. Kasi as Chair George Garcia told us, it's one thing to file your COC, it's another thing entirely to make it to the ballot. Right? So those are two separate things.
Well, Daniel Magtire also filed a COC today.
Siya
He's
yung
been
dating
viral.
asawa daw ni Chris Aquino.
Yes,
Ngayon,
boyfriend daw
gusto
siya ni
niya
Chris Aquino. But
pakasalan.
now, si Amy Marcos.
I do not know this gossip. Is that true? I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll never know. As Senator Tolentino said, they'll remain rumors for now.
All right, but on the other hand, the administration's Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas or Alliance for a New Philippines is still working on its list of local candidates.
Kaya nga ako nag-file ng maaga kasi hanggang kagabi meron pa kami mga inaayos ng mga local candidates. Kasi ideally, kung part ng alyansa, sana hindi sila maglaban-laban. No?
Navotas Representative Congressman Toby Tiangco is also the designated campaign manager of the alliance, and he says they will strive to finalize the roster by October 8, the deadline for filing of COCs. Tiangco also says they will continue to support Senator Amy Marcos, even though she withdrew from the Marcos administration's senatorial slate.
Tuloy pa rin ang suporta namin ng alyansa sa kandidatura ni Senator Amy. Kasi kanya-kanya silang style ng kampanya, di ba? Yung iba mas gusto sa grupo, yung iba gusto individual campaign. So kung anong makakabuti sa kanya, susuportahan namin dahil ang gusto naman namin, manalo yung kandidato ng alyansa. So hindi naman namin sila pipigilan kung ano yung kampanyang komportable sila at kung ano yung kampanyang makakabuti sa kanila.
Okay, as we said earlier, first to arrive at the Manila Hotel this morning for the filing of certificates of candidacy was Agri Party List Representative Wilbert Lee. He is gunning for a seat in the Senate this time, and he is live with us here in the studio this evening. Good evening, Congressman Lee,
Good evening.
congratulations on becoming the very first to file your COC. Now you've
Sana
become
number 1 na lang nga talaga. No? Not only the first to
at
file.
least first ka pa rin, first to file, and your name is out there. Tell us why you're gunning for the Senate this time. You've only had 1 term in the House, right?
Yeah. No, I believe that I can do more in the Senate. No? Mas marami akong magagawa doon. I don't need to get the consensus of so many people. No? Like in the Senate, you just need to, stock to 12. No? Maybe 12, 12 lang kayo. Pag nag-okay yun, mas mabilis na mapagawa. Like in the lower house, no, you need to talk to at least 250 plus congressman, no, for your bill to be approved or to be passed. No? So, and then once it passes in the lower house, once it gets to the Senate, pag hindi dun okay, may ipit din doon. No? So, parang ganun nangyari. Other way around, once it's approved in the Senate, and then it goes to the lower house, normally it's just adopted. No? The Senate version is just adopted in the lower house. So it's easier actually.
What have you learned in your first term in Congress?
What have I learned? Well, there are so many problems, so many things that can be solved by, simple lang, yung mga simple solution. No?
Katulad po ng?
Parang mahirap sabihin. Parang yung pinaglalaban namin, no? Pinaglalaban ko. No? I think you all have seen the Mike scaffold, no? the other day. No? It all started from yung pinaglalaban natin, yung healthcare, health benefits. No? There are so many, there's so much money in PhilHealth that is invested in banks, no? Time deposit, treasury bills, and everything. And yet, every day, every minute, every hour, we can see, ordinary people, ordinary nating kababayan namamatay minuto because they're afraid na dalhin sila sa hospital because walang pambayad sa hospital. And yet, this 504 billion na pera ng PhilHealth invested in different banks, these are supposed to be used for the health benefits of the people. So, yung ganitong nangyayari, why is these things happening? No?
So we assume you're questioning the excess funds of the PhilHealth.
It's not actually, I don't want to call it excess fund because I want to call it excess fund if all the benefits have already been answered and covered. No? The benefits, the case rates, they have not been adjusted for the last 12 years. No? What does it mean? 12 years ago, if one room would cost you 1,000 pesos and then PhilHealth would be paying, or yung binabawas ng PhilHealth is 300 pesos, that room now would cost you 2,000 now, and PhilHealth would still shoulder yung 300 or 400 lang. So, tumaas na yung presyo ng room, pero yung binabawas ng PhilHealth, ganun pa rin. Okay? So, in the last 12 years, hindi na-adjust, only recently, only now. When we started fighting for this, for the increase in benefits, naging successful kami, additional of 30%. No? But sobrang liit pa rin yan. Okay? So, gusto ko mangyari, another 50% increase, no? Which naging successful tayo because finally, they committed, the DOH Secretary and the PhilHealth President, pumirma sila sa akin, and this coming November, additional of another 50% increase. No? Plus all the diagnostic scans, MRI, PET scan, CT scan, covered na rin siya. Alam natin, these are very expensive tests. No?
Right.
No? And very few public hospitals ang meron pong mga ganitong makina. No?
I mean, that's what PhilHealth says,
Yes.
that they are, that's part of the plan naman talaga to increase the membership benefits. But,
Yeah, but-
is that going to be your main platform, health and medical services? 'Cause you're,
My main concern are affordable food, murang pagkain. Of course, itong sinabi ko, healthcare, dapat free medicines, free, under our universal healthcare law, it is the right, karapatan ng bawat isang Pilipino na magkaroon ng libreng gamot at libreng pagpapagamot. No? That's why we have what we call the zero billing or the no balance billing. But hindi po nangyayari ito. No? Hindi nangyayari, hindi na-implement. No? And of course, the last is tiyak na trabaho and sapat na kita. No? Yun po, that three basic, yun po yung gagawin natin sa Senado. We have started this in Congress, ipagpapatuloy natin sa Senado.
Okay, Congressman, aside from being the first to file the COC, today your name actually made the headlines back in July for being the top spender when it comes to Facebook advertisements.
Yeah.
I know a PCIJ report stated that you spent about 2.5 million pesos, and some netizens expressed na baka nangangampanya ka na daw po a year even before the midterm elections. So what's the rationale behind spending this extravagant amount of money on Facebook posts?
And where did you spend it on? Which
Where
kinds
did
of ads?
Where did I spend it? Well, if you will look at all yung mga posts namin sa Facebook now, and even yung mga ads namin sa billboards now, and in tarpaulins and everything, if you look at it, these are all addressed to yung para mapalapit, no? Because yung services that I'm really espousing, yung pinaglalaban natin, yung medical assistance, no? So, every day, doon sa opisina namin, we receive about 5,000 messages asking for medical assistance. And when I go around the country, all over the Philippines, ito yung primary concern, primary fear, pangunahing pangamba, pangunahing takot nila, pagkakasakit. Saan sila tatakbo pag nagkakasakit? Where do I go? Sino tatawagan ko? No? So, if you look at all this, these are all targeted to, para malaman ng tao, ito yung pwede niyong tawagan na number. Dito kayo pwede mag-contact sa amin, no? So, ganun ang nangyari, no? So,
But Kong, I mean, you spend all this money, but I'm sorry to be the one to point this
Yeah.
out, but you're still not even within the top 20 of the senatorial surveys. Number one, how much more money are you going to throw at it? And number two, my
Hindi ko
follow-up
alam.
question to your first answer is, sabi mo, it's easier in the Senate because you just need consensus of a few people, but
Yeah.
it's much harder to get in.
yeah, of course.
Right?
It's
So
a
what's gonna be your
it's a
strategy?
long uphill,
Are you running as an independent?
No, I joined Action Democratico,
Okay.
no, of the late Senator Raul Roco. No? So, we have the same values, the same advocacy with the party. That's why I joined Action Democratico. Plus the fact that he's also a fellow Bicolano, no? and one of those iniidolo po natin na public servant. No? To your question, how much more, hindi ko rin alam. Marami nagsasabi na babaliw daw ako. Mas mabuti na sigurong baliw na may gustong gawin, no? Rather
Well,
than...
do you
You
feel-
mean sino nagsasabi ko? Your
Well,
wife,
there
your
are,
family?
my family, no.
But your
my
family's-
family is fully supporting
Okay.
me, no.
So the
Lahat
people-
sila, no.
other people
Sabi
around.
na, yung family ko, sinasabi, kumukuha ka ng pamukpok sa ulo. Eh sabi ko, siguro, kailangan nating lahat ng pamukpok sa ulo para hindi tayo maging manhid, no. Para lagi tayong gising sa mga nangyayari, nararamdamang paghihirap ng ating kababayan.
Prior to you representing Agri Party List, it was your wife
My
who
wife,
represented it for 3 consecutive terms.
For two.
For two? Is she going to run in your stead to represent the party?
Well, actually, that's why the party list did not file today, no? Because we are still, the party is still talking. No? We're still waiting for some leaders from the provinces to come over to Manila and pag-uusapan po namin. No?
Do you feel you had done enough already in the agricultural sector? Because papalit po kayo ng plataforma from agriculture to health.
It's a tough question. No? Hindi mo siguro masasabi na you have done enough because there are lots of problem. No? Ang importante, we're in the right direction. We have started it. No? The government have started it in the right direction and we're just following it. Nasimulan ko rin, nasimulan din natin. So it's a maraming complex problem po dyan. Malaking hamon po talaga yung agriculture po. But sinisimulan po natin yan.
When you were deciding on your next step, staying for another term in the lower house was not a consideration. You really didn't. You were done with the lower house. You wanted the Senate na talaga, or even let's say local mayoralty.
Siguro if I'm here for personal interest or whatever, then I would say that I would consider running for another term in the lower house. No? Because based on the surveys, yung Agri is sure na magkakaroon ng isang seat
Yes.
pa. No? Based
As a
on
party list, yes.
on the survey. No? So, if I'm there na for, ayokong banggitin kung anong other purpose, siguro gano'n. No? Pero, hindi gano'n. No? Talagang, para sa akin, gusto ko talaga yung puso ko talaga, gusto ko tumulong.
Well, speaking of, we know that public service is a sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice.
And your family built your fortune on a business empire, the LKY Group.
Yeah.
What happens now? Do you divest from these businesses?
I have divested already actually since the day one that na pumasok ako, no, nag-divest na ako. Sa management naman and everything, we have professional managers, but of course yung kids ko yun ang mahala. In the story is when I decided to run and to enter politics, no. Yung mga anak ko nagsabi sa akin, they only have 2 conditions actually, no. Sabi niya, I don't know if I can say this on national television. Sabi niya, huwag ka lang maging corrupt, Dad. That's the first. Sabi ko, okay. Then sabi ng mga anak ko, I know what you're thinking. Sabi niya na, sige, sabi ko, paano yung gagastusin natin? Sabi niya, Dad, sabi ng daughter ko, my second daughter especially, no? Sabi niya, Dad, pagdating ng araw, kailangan natin isang banga lang at isang maliit na butas. No? Hindi naman natin madadala yan. No? Parang gano'n. No?
What was the second condition, Kong?
That's the second.
That's the second condition.
Hindi natin madadala yan, sabi niya. Hindi natin madadala. Isang banga lang yung kailangan natin. Meaning to say, pag dumating yung oras mo, cremate ka na, isang banga lang kailangan mo. No? Bakit mo kailangan ng... I think yun. And then...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Forgive me, but are you deemed resigned the moment that you start campaigning as a
I really
party
don't
list
know
nominee?
because I have received yesterday from, there are parang may bagong circular from the COMELEC, no, na hindi ko alam. But ako naman, okay ako. If I'm deemed resigned, then okay naman ako. No? Wala akong issue about that.
Okay, so healthcare, agriculture, and jobs. That's going to be your platform.
Jobs, agriculture, affordable food, because I always believe that para bumaba yung ating pong pagkain, to lower our inflation, the correct way is to boost our production, our local production.
Pero matagal-tagal po na solusyon yun.
That's a bigger conversation, but we're going to have to
but
leave that there.
Sa akin kasi, food security is a national security issue.
It is. President Marcos himself has said that.
If it's a national security issue, then automatically we should appropriate funds for it every year. We should prioritize it.
We are going to have to leave that there for tonight. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Agri Party List Representative, Congressman Wilbert Lee, gunning for a seat in the Senate, this time under Action Democratico.
Well, we're going to be taking a quick break, but up next, 10 members of Aegis Juris Fraternity are sentenced to life imprisonment over USC law freshman Horacio Castillo's death back in September 2017. The details of the case when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You are still watching the big story here on One News.
Well, it took 7 years for the family of UST law freshman Horacio Castillo III for justice to be served for his death. 10 members of Aegis Juris Fraternity were sentenced today to reclusión perpetua, or up to 40 years imprisonment after being found guilty of violating the anti-hazing law of 1995. They were also ordered to pay civil indemnity and moral and exemplary damages to the heirs of Atio Castillo. Castillo was 22 years old when he died on September 17, 2017, after the initiation of the Aegis Juris Fraternity. Members of the fraternity brought him to the Chinese General Hospital, where he was declared dead on arrival.
The guilty verdict is a team effort. We all placed our 100% and we got our conviction.
I think it's about time heads should roll in the UST.
And before we go, just a reminder for those flying out tonight or in the coming days, well, parking rates at the NAIA have gone up. As you can see, the regular rate for cars has been adjusted by 10 pesos, and the duration for the first hours of parking have also been reduced from 3 to 2. But here's the kicker. For overnight parking, the rates have quadrupled. From 300 pesos for 24 hours before, it's now 1,200 pesos. And that's just for cars. Mia says this is part of the concession agreement with San Miguel Corporation, which now operates NAIA. And more than income, the higher rates aim to address traffic around the terminals.
Yun ding kultura, no, na one passenger pero 5 kotse yung magsusundo. I guess that can be addressed with this one also. I think it addresses so many congestion concerns so that masigurado din natin yung flow ng traffic sa ating parking facilities na kahit dagsa yung arrival, hindi siya ganun ka congested.
A good option is to do ride-hailing. I've been doing that
Really?
for
To
my
the airport?
trips. Super bilis na lang.
Okay.
Pag nag-book ka, mga 10 minutes.
To the airport?
Yes.
Mm.
Kumbaga,
Okay,
madami ng
because
supply
usually
na
it's-
ride-hailing.
Oh, usually it's quite difficult coming out of BGC, but thanks, Pao. That's exactly what we love to hear. More expensive stuff, more expensive parking, more expensive. But this is just the first, no?
Yeah, this is
Of the series of increases that the new NAIA operator is expected to implement now that it's under San Miguel.
And just as long as things are getting better.
Yeah, I get the rationale behind it. But I guess it remains to be seen as well just how much better, right? Although we're talking about a long runway here.
Oo nga pala, Pao, siya ang resident Grinch namin. Perpetual
Because
optimist.
because you're paying now for more, right? You're paying now for more today.
No. To go to the airport, it's 500 pesos.
That's
So
a
mas
lot.
mura yun. Mas mura yun
Than
kaysa
paying
mag
for-
1,200 ka.
Overnight parking.
Overnight.
Well, dapat quadruple din yung improvements. If quadruple
See?
yung increase
Thank
sa...
you. Thank you.
sa
Exactly.
parking.
If you're gonna
Kaya
quadruple
hamon
it,
natin, no?
if you're gonna quadruple the improvements, especially with the lavatories, the bathrooms, right?
And the list goes on and on.
But on that note, that's the show for us tonight.
Well, join us again tomorrow for the second day of the filing of the COCs. In the meantime, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.